So I had to give myself a lot of pep talks in the purpose my physical being was serving at that time, and the fact that I don't have to change, period, if I don't want to, but like there is no timeline for my physical shifts postpartum. And so that took some change, some mindset awareness, and just like I said, I kind of had to give myself a lot of pep talks that it was all going to be okay, and it was all okay in the moment. And like I said, I had this very specific role. As far as business, I had luckily planned out, content and stuff to be released for the first few months. But then I had put some very unrealistic expectations on myself as far as what I would be accomplishing after that period of time. And then I was like, oh, the reality versus expectation here is very different.
Welcome to Point to Rise, your podcast that gives you permission to dream big, take messy action, and turn your talent into profit while turning your back on perfection. My name is Susanne Puerschel, high performance and mindset coach, former international ballerina, profitable entrepreneur, and founder of Point to Rise, a movement designed to empower dancers. It is my mission to use my own story as an inspiration for today's generation of dancers. And now sit back, stretch, warm up, or sip your coffee and love learning how much it matters to point at yourself first to rise to all that you are capable of. Jessica, thank you so much for being here. I am so delighted to have this conversation with you today.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Before we get started, everyone, we're going to just dive right in who Jessica is outside of her whole dancer mission. And I'm going to ask you a few rapid fire questions. So what is your favorite board game?
Oh, favorite board game. Let's see. I like Bananagrams. If I have to pick just one, I like Yahtzee. I don't know if that counts as a board game, but that is certainly one of my favorites.
So I love Yahtzee too. It's not a board game, but who cares? What's your favorite beverage? That can be anything.
Water or coffee? Probably more coffee right now. Yeah. Essential.
What is your favorite movie?
Dirty Dancing.
Shut the front door. Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh
seriously.
My gosh. I was 13 when Dirty Dancing came out. And I was still living in East Germany. So it was the first time a movie from the United States actually made it into our little bubble of communist thinking. And I remember I watched it every day, like every showing, all 5 showings that day, I was watching it.
So
that's
good.
How much Dirty Dancing.
Yeah. I've seen it 100 times at least, probably. If I had to guess.
Nobody's gonna the baby. Nobody's gonna tell my baby what to do. What is something that you can't do?
I can't play sports very well.
Okay, fair enough. I can change tires on a car.
I can't do that either.
Okay, so see,
I don't know why it was so hard for me to think of something, but because there's a lot. But yeah.
Well, good for you for not knowing what you can't do. I'm really proud of you.
I don't think about what I can't do very much. Focus on what you can do, right?
Exactly, right? So this is good. When are you most inspired? Meaning what time of day?
In the morning. I'm a morning person. I have had to shift since motherhood to being productive at night, but my most inspired time of day, I would say, is the morning.
And last question, just not to squeeze more.
These are fun.
These are fun. Okay, I have 73 of them. We can go down the list now. Favorite childhood memory?
Well, one that always comes to mind was, I'm one of 3 children. I'm the middle child.
Oh,
the poor neglected middle child. And I always will remember this one day that for whatever reason, my dad took me to go to Carvel, the ice cream shop that was down the block from us, to pick up dessert for the weekend, I guess, ice cream cones, right? And they had these stuffed animals up in like plastic bags up around the ceiling. I don't know what they were hanging from, but it was not something that they always sold there, but there was this little chick stuffed animal called Cookie Chick that my dad bought for me on that trip. And, like I said, just it was kind of special being the only kid there and that he bought me something extra on top of ice cream. So yeah, I'll always remember.
Oh, I'm gonna cry. That's beautiful. I have 3 children and I know the middle child kind of syndrome, and somehow, somewhat, it always like sneaks into the family regardless on how hard you try. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So tell us how you actually started dancing. Where did that come from? Where did that live? Did you have to? Was that your mission, your vision, your purpose?
So I liked performing like for an audience, from the time I was little. And so I guess I started doing all kinds of performing just on my own. And I was young when I first went into dance classes. I was like 3. It was nothing serious for like the first almost 10 years of my training. But that was how I got started. And I mean, even the non-serious years when I was doing combo, ballet, tap, jazz in an hour and a half, I loved it. And I just loved like the movement, and I was always naturally flexible. And so I got a lot of featured roles in my little rinky-dink studio to highlight my flexibility.
So what changed at 13?
So then at 13, I would like, I feel like I'm so old. The internet feels like it was kind of new at that time, but I would like look on websites for more serious ballet schools and stuff. And I think I started to kind of figure out that what I was doing wasn't super professional. We also had at my rinky-dink studio, the owner brought in a legitimate dancer who, at the time I still didn't really know much about what was legitimate ballet training and stuff, but I can see in my memory, like her dancing and how different it was from what I had previously been taught. And so I just started to like figure it out. And there was a school that was not too far from, it was like a 15-20 minute drive from my house. And so we went there, and, it wasn't really, you didn't really have to audition, but it was like serious levels. And they, put me into a pretty, I guess it was good for my age. I was, seemed to be kind of at the right level for my age, though I would say I was quite behind still. And then I got into the whole summer intensive every year kind of thing. And since I'm from New York and I was training on Long Island, I still would go into Manhattan and usually School of American Ballet for all of my summer intensive auditions. So then I really started to figure out what was going on in dance. I was like, oh my God, people are so good. And then I never really considered myself super competitive, but I did like the auditioning thing and like getting into summer intensives I found really exciting. And so then I kind of just like took off from there. And by the end of high school, I always say like not ready for a professional career. And also it was a compromise with my mother that she like needed me to go to college. So I went to Butler University and studied dance and arts administration there before dancing professionally.
Okay. So after you finished your college degree,
then I went and danced with the Louisville Ballet. And after Louisville, a friend of mine from college was moving to Boston. And I had attended Boston Ballet summer dance program one year. And I always said like I wanted to live in Boston. And so she was like, just move with me and I knew I wanted to be back on the East Coast. So I moved to Boston and I freelanced there for like 5 years. I had my sights set on a specific company. And when I got there, like the ballet master was like, I was taking open class and the ballet master taught open class a lot. He was like, I'm going to get you a job. It's going to be great, blah, blah, blah. And then of course, when auditions rolled around for that company, he kind of had a falling out with the artistic director. So that one didn't work out, but he was like, he started doing his own projects. And so I was dancing with him a lot. So opportunities still came up in Boston, even though it wasn't my intended plan while I was there.
Probably maybe a better path.
I think, mostly, it's one of those things when you look back and you're like, that actually company wasn't probably the best fit for me. And this ballet master was quite supportive and certainly helped my development as an artist quite a bit.
And, sometimes that's missing when we get in those big company settings, for example, that doesn't exist anymore. So, right. when we look backwards and connect the dots, perhaps that was a blessing more right. than anything else.
When I look back, I see a lot of those situations, which I often tell my clients. It's like, you might not see it now, but I guarantee in like 10 years, you're going to look back and be like, oh, okay, it kind of all made sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's having that faith, right? That things always will work out for us.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, so when did you hang up your point shoes and why? And then, okay, I'm honest, going to let you go that way.
So I was like around 27 and I always initially I was like, I was injured and there was an injury component, but I, had gone through recovery from the injury and was healed and given the okay to go back to dance. And I had moved back home. So I was on Long Island. So I was taking open class in New York, mostly at Steps. And it was a grind. And I really felt like I was not going to ever get back to where I was. I wasn't going to get better than I was. I was still having a lot of pain that would come and go. And I largely think now that the pain was the mental health struggles manifesting physically. I just was so exhausted from fighting with myself for so many years. Because, while I love dance and I can certainly look back on my dance journey and think of a lot of great memories and experiences. And obviously I met like tons of incredible people, some of whom are still friends today and things like that. It was a struggle for me. And largely it was the body image and feeling that my body was not right for ballet and that always I thought I needed to be smaller than I was. And so, that thought process started around 13, 14 when I was in that more professional setting. And I got a comment from a teacher there about my body. And so I really took that with me through my whole dance journey. And so that was 14-ish years of not feeling great about yourself and feeling like you're fighting with yourself mentally and physically. And so I just think largely I was kind of like burnt out and just done. And I couldn't do it anymore, at least not without some sort of support. And I didn't really see options available at that time.
And thank you for sharing that, because I find it so interesting that our body protects us in a way and sends us these signs that, no, you know what, you got to heal on a deeper level before you can do anything else. I had these experiences so many times in my life, and I would even go so far for me personally that most of my injuries were because I was not in a good mental state during my entire career.
Right.
And that was always my 2x4 knocking me over the head and saying, yo, sister, you got to deal with some other stuff here. Stop pretending everything is all right. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And that's also something I think we don't often see in the moment.
No.
But it can be very clear when you're looking back and you're like, oh, the timing of those things.
And who wants to really look that deep,
right?
Because it does bring up a lot of goo and slime that is not really nice to deal with. And if you're not really used to it, if you're not in an environment that actually really furthers that kind of work on yourself, then that's a really first hard step to take. Okay. The whole dancer. Tell me all about it, because it is so important that everybody that has anything to do with dance knows exactly what stories are true and what stories are not true. And also having the power in themselves to decide what is best for them, and being able to choose from a place of love. I think I really want to dive into this now, because it is such important work. And I wish that everybody would be open to that, so that when they get out of that industry, or even while being in there, that you can enjoy being a dancer and not really disliking every single part about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. The whole dancer, I started in 2015, August. It'll be almost 6 years. And it really was because because of my own experience. And, when I started thinking about it, I was like, I don't know, like a lot of dancers, I was like, I think it was only me who was like having this major crisis all the time. Like, I'm pretty sure I was the only one. Everyone else was fine. Like, nobody else was having as hard a time with body image. Nobody else was struggling with food as much. No one had as much self-doubt. So I, reached out to 50 dancers who I knew from over the years, some of whom were still dancing professionally, others who weren't. And I had this whole questioning around, what was your experience? What were your struggles? What came up for you around body image? What came up for you with confidence and self-assuredness? Did you feel like your journey was balanced? And like, so much consistency across the board. And, some of it was like shocking for me, because of course, some of these dancers were the ones I would look at and be like, she's perfect. She has absolutely nothing to worry about. Like, her body is perfect. She has great technique. Like, she's moving forward in her career. She gets positive feedback from people. But even for those people, oftentimes the struggles are all right there. And so I knew something was missing for dancers. And for me, especially when I was starting it back in 2015, it was like, we need this greater attention to self-care and balance and wellness, because nobody is putting any attention there. And so that's really where it started, and it's evolved over time. But that is always sort of at the root of it, is just knowing that dancers need to give themselves some deeper love and care and attention beyond, pushing in the studio and just working harder and being more disciplined and having more control with things, because I think those are the things we so often, conclusions we come to, whether they are, told to us explicitly, or whether it's just like, well, this is what everyone else is kind of doing, is everyone else looks like they're being super disciplined and controlled and stringent in their plans. So I probably have to do that too.
Let me ask you this question. Why do you think that in 2021, we are still talking about the same issues? Why have we not gone and changed how we're doing, how we're teaching dance, how we're running companies? Why is it still the same attributes that I went through when I was going through school, and that was 84 to 92? Now, this is a large amount of time, and I still hear the same things that I put up with. The same stories, the same beliefs have been shared over almost 40 years now. Come on, like where do you think is the nugget that we're missing here?
I think that largely the problem comes from everyone sort of saying and seeing, the tradition of ballet. Mm-hmm. And so much of it is, beautiful and transcendent. And like a lot of that beauty stems from tradition. But there's also these deeply ingrained, painful, harmful approaches to things that have been allowed to perpetuate in the name of tradition, or with tradition as an excuse. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is the way it's always been, and everyone looks great on stage, so it's working, right? Like the finished product is what they want.
Working. Right. Change is so much harder than following the same structures.
Right.
Thank you for sharing that. I agree. And I don't think we're asking questions. I don't think we're asking any questions. I don't think the entire industry is actually a safe place to ask questions, deeper questions. It is the and or mentality. No, either or mentality, where I believe there should be and in between everything that we're saying. And I feel that could actually change quite a bit if people would be more open to see different things and feel different things and try and fail. Good Lord, make a mistake, make 10, make 20. This is how we learn, right? But that was never something, and I think you would agree with that. That was never something that was even allowed. Like, don't even say the word.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, this is interesting because I just was looking at a thread today in a dance teacher Facebook group where someone had shared a recent article from Dance Teacher Magazine about working without a mirror. And, the person who posted was just like, what do you guys think about the possibility of working without a mirror? And I went and read the article. I've read another recent article about, not using mirrors, and I find it very interesting. Largely, my thought process around it is the impact that it has on body image, and how there have actually been studies done that show that dancing in front of a mirror has a negative impact on body image. And I understand the value of a mirror, but I went through this thread and I read the comments, and I wondered if people had actually read the article, because the writer had brought up the body image piece, and maybe 1 out of 20 people, it seemed, had kind of mentioned that aspect of things. And most people were just like, we have to have a mirror. Of course, we're going to go back to having a mirror. It was about Zoom classes not having a mirror. And now are we going to go back to everything having a mirror? Everyone was like, yes, we need a mirror. And it was just like, I wrote and I was like, what about if we change the way or reconsider the way we're using the mirror? And what about if we think about the way or the impact that the mirror has on body image and how we might approach that, or conversations we might have with students and dancers to shift the thought process around body image as it relates to the mirror? And I mean, like you said, nobody was asking questions. Everyone was just like, no, we've always had a mirror. We have to have a mirror. And I was like, okay.
Can we just stay in the mirror kind of place for a second? Do you remember when we were standing on bars, like, oh, can I trade places with you? Because my mirror makes me look really fat and I don't think I can take it today. And the energy that we spend on trying to make ourselves feel better when we looked in the mirror, and how fixated I still see people being on the mirror.
Yeah. Every week I have conversations with clients about fat mirrors.
They're terrible. I don't like the mirrors.
I know.
Not till this day, not. So, and it's not
not only about the fat mirror, but we're getting so depending on an image of ourselves versus having that image come to us from inside of us. Like, I don't know how many times the mirror or the perceived image held me back on stage to actually let go, because I couldn't feel. I was just looking and checking.
Same.
Versus letting go and actually expressing. We're just going on a rant here because of that article.
Yeah.
Go check it out.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Do you know the book Who Moved My Cheese?
It sounds familiar though, but I'm not sure.
It's about change and adapting to change. And it's a very cute story about two mice and two little people, about their emotional state and how they adapt to when somebody moved the cheese away. The mice were able to just like, okay, I'm just going to go and find something new. And where could we go? And completely open-minded, just going with their instinct. And the two people let fear get in the way. They went back to the cheese station that was empty over and over and over again, blaming everybody on the outside that somebody moved their cheese. I am entitled to having this because I'm here, because it's me. And almost actually being extinct because of their resistance to change. And I dig the story out every now and then, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, we are the arts, ballet. Okay, so there was a recent posting of yours that I so loved. And I am paraphrasing. You said that before we do anything else, before we start anything else, we got to look at where you're at with self-love. Let's dive into that a little bit, because I love it. Absolutely love it. I couldn't agree more. And B, what kind of tangible things could we maybe give the listeners today? How do you actually get there to accept yourself in an environment that does a lot to you and letting you know that you actually need to fight against yourself?
I think that for dancers, a lot of dancers, it is connected to body image. And there's a lot of work that can be done to improve there. I'll point to a recent article that I wrote for Point Magazine that you guys can check out, but it has 3 body image boosting tips, which has, some of my main go-tos for clients. One of them being reframing the way that you are viewing what you perceive to be your flaws. And I always use the example of thighs because that was my big flaw. And rather than seeing them as, just big and something I needed to change, what if I saw the power that they gave me for jumps and the power that they gave me just for dancing overall? So reframing in that way can be really useful. If dancers have a body story that they are holding on to from the time they were young, or from many instances over the years of experiences that they had, I highly encourage rewriting that story. And for that process can be like highly emotional because some of these experiences were traumatic, but when you can write them down and dissociate from them and then choose to create a different story around your body and what you see, that can be a really positive path forward. And then the last one is more of like a meditative experience or action that I think dancers really benefit from first thing in the morning, I say, just because it's like you're laying down already. So just put a hand on your heart and a hand on your stomach, do some deep breathing and send some gratitude to your body, even just for waking up that morning and taking you through your day and your life. So those are some body image boosting tips that I come back to a lot. I think that beyond that, really giving yourself some time during the day, whether that is through a skincare routine or a body care routine or rolling out or self-massage or going and getting a massage if and when that's an option. And then exercise and movement, that's not just about dance, but rather actually finding some opportunity to move your body, whether it's just for fun or again, because it feels good, stretching first thing in the morning, things like that. But creating those opportunities to, whether it's conscious or subconscious, sort of tell yourself that you are worthy of that sort of time and attention can help a lot.
Okay. So these are a few things, but some, like what else is self-love? Meaning, like we talked a lot about the physical, right? And skincare, body care, stretching, exercising, not beyond, but outside of the classes in the studio. In your opinion, what else, what other layers are there for self-love?
I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to how you are viewing yourself and how you are treating yourself. And we also, as dancers, create this experience of external validation and this need for external validation. And it comes from the time we're very young. And I think that rather than seeking out that external validation, you can think to yourself, what is it that I want this person to say to me to make me feel validated, and start saying those things to yourself. We are very in need of this external validation. And it's not just dancers, obviously, this is most people. But it's not always something that those outside people are going to give to you. So you're left then searching and seeking and feeling as though you're not worthy because this person hasn't said to you the thing that you want them to say to you. And you can't will them to do it. So you have to start validating yourself by saying these things to yourself. And the more you say them to yourself, it is the kind of thing that I think in the beginning you can be like, oh, I don't know, I don't believe, you don't believe it, but the more that you do it and the more that you affirm that you are worthy, the more you do in fact start to believe it.
Two things. When I look at self-love, I would have never thought that taking away the factor of looking for validation from the outside is actually something that, counts as self-love. And I think that, yes, many people are like that, but I feel that in the entire performing arts scene, it is a heightened kind of state because, we look in the mirror to get validation. We wait from our peers to get validation that we did it right. We look at our teachers, and there is the slippery slope when we unlearn so much to really look at ourselves and love ourselves and believe ourselves. And we're putting all of that power, all of that into somebody else's hands. And if they can't give it to us, we go into, I don't know, eating disorders. We're going into abusing ourselves. We go into shopping sprees. Some people start drinking, smoking, you name it, and it is so imperative to understand that dancers are not fighting against themselves. Like something that I heard over and over and over again. You are lazy. You need to fight against yourself. And when we hear this as little people, well, fighting against myself turned into so many other things. Like that was just so stuck in my subconscious that anything and everything I did was fighting against who I was and who I wanted to be. And that's why I feel this kind of self-development, loving yourself and knowing what you're great at is so imperative. It's the first thing anybody should know I mean, we know it when we're bored. We just unlearn and we're being told differently.
I think that dancers sometimes also struggle with authenticity because we are trying to fit into someone's box for us, so you do beyond just the physical aesthetic, you try to be something and be, what you perceive to be the, whatever your area of dance is, perhaps the ideal ballet dancer, whatever you perceive that to be, which may or may not be, in fact, be true to who you actually are. And so I think that when you're not living in your true self and embodying who you really are, that it's very hard to love this inauthentic version of you.
Or you can't.
And that's a big piece. Yeah, exactly.
There always will be friction, right? Because you're not really aligning with your deep inner self. And that will, maybe not in the beginning, maybe not in the first 10 years, but later down the road, that will come really clear and will get really loud really quickly. Yeah. This is why we're seeing, in the mid-20s to mid-30s, where particularly women just implode, explode. All of these issues are surfacing because we have pushed down everything that we weren't allowed to feel for so many years. Yeah. And I feel that the earlier you can understand that the teacher in the studio is there to teach you how to move your body, and everything else, you go and find a specialist. Right. You find somebody that is specialized in nutrition for dancers. You find somebody that can coach you on high performing habits. You find somebody that gets your mindset into place, because the generation of teachers that is out there, and I'm saying this with so much love and grace, it is not your fault, but we are keeping these old beliefs that have maybe served a generation that was completely different. It is not serving this generation anymore.
Right. And I don't think it's not that it has to be the teacher's role to be the mindset coach and the health coach and, the high performance coach. They certainly don't. But they do need to be aware that those people are out there and refer their students to them and say, look, maybe this person could help you with this body image struggle that you're going through. Maybe this person can help you with your confidence and auditions that you're struggling with. I think that teachers should be really aware of what resources are becoming available to dancers so that they can advocate for them, because I do think there are still some dancers who think working with someone outside of the studio is admitting some sort of weakness, and we need more champions for support outside of the studio so that dancers can see, oh no, by working with this person, I'm going to show up with more confidence. My dance training is going to take me further because I've also paid attention to my mindset.
Go into this a little bit more, because I so hear you. It's this mindset of that, the dance teacher needs to know everything, and we're not allowed to show any kind of flaws or weaknesses. We can't even say, oh, I don't know that. And even if you may know something, I'm not an expert in this, so therefore I can't tell you. Not understanding that the times have changed, that being a dancer nowadays doesn't mean you're that funhead that walks down that one lane and is just, that was good in the 80s and 90s. We have come so much further. The cheese has literally moved to a completely different place. And we're still going back to that old station and trying to find the cheese, but it's not there anymore. Like if this wants to be a sustainable kind of art form, it is so imperative to say, hey, this doesn't work. I don't know this. I need different coaches. When I started my self-development journey, oh my goodness, I had like 3 or 4 coaches for every different aspect of what I really had to learn and let go of, because they were experts. I mean, you wouldn't hire a business coach if you want to learn how to sell stuff.
Right.
So don't really go to, your ballet master and ask them how to structure your nutrition during the day, because they don't know.
Exactly. But they might try to tell you what to eat.
They might, yes. And actually, they are telling you not to eat at times, or the stories that are out there are horrendous. And
they are. And ongoing.
Yeah. I'm sure you have, and they're ongoing. Now that makes me upset.
Yeah. I really thought that was one thing that really kind of shocked me, because I was like, there's no way dance teachers are still talking about what dancers should eat, or like telling you, oh, don't eat too much at Thanksgiving. But 100% they are still. Yeah.
Just have tea over Easter. Don't eat an egg or two. Like, don't. And you know what? The worst thing is that I'm still dealing with that kind of mentality. Like, it's still so deep in there. If I want to have chocolate, I'll go check if my size 4 still fit, which they don't right away. And I struggle with that too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I work with a lot of retired dancers, actually, because it's deeply ingrained. It has a big long-term impact. Relationship to food is huge.
And this is where we have to understand. And I know that when we're young and eager and hungry, we'll do anything and everything to just get there, you know, to be loved and seen. And we forget that these long-term effects will, you know, you're going to pay a lot of money to undo all of that stuff. So
yeah,
you may want to consider not taking all of that heavy stuff on, because it is really, really, really hard to let go of.
Yeah. It can have long-term effects that I think as a young person, you don't even consider or give much weight to, because you think, oh, I'll deal with that later if it's an issue. But I think that, you know, dancers do see this goal, right? This very like, I need to get the job, I need to get the paid contract, I need to get the promotion, and are willing to sacrifice because it's such a short career and all of these things. You know, we have all of these thought processes that justify it for us, or we allow to justify it, and don't necessarily consider what long-term damage can be done.
Fighting for our limits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hey, do you have a coach right now?
Do I? I have a business coach right now. I've had a business coach on and off from the time I started the whole dancer.
Yeah, I think it's imperative. It really cuts so much time out of your learning curve. It gets you into a network that you otherwise don't have the tools to get into. And I find it so, there's so many things that we can analyze in ourselves, you know, and we're, particularly as dancers, we're so good and like looking at ourselves and picking out all the things that are not working and not good. Mm-hmm. And this post didn't do so well. And I only had like 20 out of the 21 spots in my course filled. And we forget to look at all the great things that we're doing every single day. Definitely. And as an entrepreneur, I know that is so imperative for your survival.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think for me, a big shift came after I became a mother as well. I had to say, what can I actually accomplish? And then I had to really celebrate those accomplishments and be like, okay, this is, you know, and that's another thing that I think dancers don't necessarily consider, is that there are seasons in life. And this is something I talk to dancers about with the body piece as well. It's like your body is supposed to change over time, and things happen in life that will cause physical shifts. The sooner you can be accepting of that fact, and the sooner you can get to a place of loving yourself regardless of physical shifts and changes, the more joy you'll have in life.
There's that change piece again.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I know what it felt like to me when my first child arrived and what happened to my body. I like doubled my body weight basically. And I remember how depressed I was. Do you mind sharing a little bit how it was for you and letting go of these expectations of, high performing? I need to get all of this done while raising a tiny little newborn. Yeah.
Yeah. So with the body piece, I stayed pretty good because I was in, luckily, quite a stable place with body image by that point. So I stayed pretty good with the change. Towards the end, it was a little hard, partly because, and it's funny, but like body comments, especially, pregnant women talk about this all the time, the unsolicited feedback and advice and stuff. It wasn't even my doctor, but one of my friend's doctors had said to her, there's no reason why a woman should ever gain more than X number of pounds in pregnancy. And my friend said that to me. And I was like, then towards the end of my pregnancy, I was like, wait, how much have I gained? And so I like for a moment was just like, oh, I can't believe I gained more than this random doctor who's not even mine said women should gain during pregnancy. But it affected me a little bit. Like I said, I luckily was in a really good place mentally as far as body image and mindset go, that I could be like, okay, like this guy doesn't know anything about me. That's kind of a random and arbitrary number. That's not even what you read in the books. So I was able to let it go, but it's amazing how those things can still like make you take pause. And then after my daughter was born, I was like, wait a minute, this is a different body than I was expecting. It's like very different when you have the baby in there and you're like, okay, I'm supposed to be this person. I'm housing a child. And then when the baby comes out and it's like, okay, this is not going as quickly as I thought it would for me, or, how I, expected. And so I had to do, and then there's the whole hormonal factor that just like adds a layer or two or three. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I had to give myself a lot of pep talks in the purpose my physical being was serving at that time. And the fact that I don't have to change, period, if I don't want to, but like there is no timeline for my physical shifts postpartum. And so that took some change, some mindset awareness. And just like I said, I kind of had to give myself a lot of pep talks that it was all going to be okay. And it was all okay in the moment. And like I said, I had this very specific role. As far as business, I had luckily planned out, content and stuff to be released for the first few months. But then I had put some very unrealistic expectations on myself as far as what I would be accomplishing after that period of time. And then I was like, oh, the reality versus expectation here is very different. And so then I just kind of had to pivot and say, okay, like what is the best I can do right now? And as you and I talked about before too, the sleep deprivation has been a big challenge for me throughout. My daughter will be 2 in June. It's been a journey with sleep. And so, I had to also give myself some understanding in that if I am completely sleep deprived, there is only so much productivity I can expect, even within the time that I had available. So it was a big shifting of expectations. And I think that it's only probably in the last, maybe the last 10 months that I have started to feel like I'm gaining momentum again. Which is nice. And it's exciting. And I also, again, it's like, I still am spending much less time on my business than I was prior to having my daughter, but my productivity within that time is magnified quite significantly, which is like, oh, wow, we really can. When you're forced to get something done in 2 hours that you might spend 10 hours on previously, you'll get it done in 2 hours. So that's been my new mantra is just get it done, and, do your best.
And you're very focused on what is very important. What are the 1 or 2 things I need to really get done today? And everything else is being released, right?
Exactly.
I feel like we as dancers, we're really good in talking ourselves into the 10, 12-hour days, because that's what we're used to. And we almost feel guilty if we could actually do all of that in 3 hours.
Right.
I just want to one comment. I felt that for the first time in my life, when I had my first son, I actually became a woman, and I couldn't handle that because it was never prior to that allowed to be a woman, look like a woman. And I don't know, I think I'm now okay with, you know what? I am a woman and I love my squishy parts. I'm not there yet, but I want to get there. And maybe they're going to go away again, who knows? But having this realization that I will not be that little girl for forever, even though perhaps my job wanted me to do, or this is what I needed to look like in order to be casted for all of these roles that, you have to be nothing and a half for. So that was another struggle for me in all 3 pregnancies.
Yeah. I think that for dancers, the just even like, I think a lot of dancers go through a sort of delayed puberty, and that can be a big struggle. And a lot of times they're going through it as they're trying to get a job or when they're in their first jobs. And it is rough. It is a challenge of getting to a place of self-acceptance. And then, when you become pregnant, and that's a whole nother physical shift in womanhood for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all that. Yeah, because we don't often talk about particularly that piece. We're supposed to be those princesses and those pretty human beings and the swans and the fairies, but we're women to start with.
Right.
And what does that mean in that kind of industry,
Right.
And we need to talk about it so there is no shame around it, that we can actually stand on our 2 feet and say, hey, I'm not a fairy first, I'm a woman.
Right.
And then I'll put myself into that kind of mindset, but I don't need to look like it all the time. A last question. If you could go back to your 16-year-old self and you would exactly know everything that you know today, and you would be able to go back to her and spend an hour with her, what would you tell her?
I mean, mostly I would say your body is exactly perfect and enough as it is. It does not have to be smaller. You need to eat enough food to nourish yourself. I would say a lot in an hour. Hopefully it would get through there, but I don't know. I think, the relationship to food for me was such a big struggle. Food in my body, those were the biggest struggles for the whole of my dance experience and career. And so I think to say to her that food is not the enemy. Your body needs to be loved and cared for. And then you'll really enjoy dance. And then you'll go even further in your dance career and goals. So try to find that peace with it, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yep. I would tell her something like that too. Many other things. Where can we find you? What's next on the agenda in like your next 3 months?
So I'm starting a series on Instagram Live with some pro dancers where they will share their experience of balance and how they have created that for themselves from student to professional, how things have shifted. This will be a little Wellness Wednesday series on Instagram that I'm looking forward to starting next week. And then later this month in May, I'm going to be hosting a Rewrite Your Body Story workshop, which will be interactive coaching workshop around this whole changing the narrative that you have in your head around your body and what you think it should be or what someone told you it should be, so that you can get to a place of true confidence in your body, which for many dancers translates to much greater confidence in dancing.
Yeah.
And so those are the big things, exciting things I have coming up this month. And then anything else, head over to thewholedancer.com and you can sign up for the email list there. And then you'll hear about everything that's coming up in coming months as well.
I liked one more question. And I love playing brilliant ID time, meaning that nothing is off the books. Anything is possible. You have all the time and resources at your hand. Where do you want to take, what's your big dream for the whole dancer over the next, let's say?
I want to start to be part of some major shifts at ballet companies and university dance programs and pre-professional training programs. I think that more of them would benefit from having some sort of ongoing support and resources and workshops and, again, like interactive things for their dancers. And that's an area I'm planning to put some focus on in the coming years.
And being there, like being visible and not just coming in once a month. And hey, if you have a problem, why don't you go and talk to them?
Right.
Nobody will admit that they have a problem.
Right.
Right. Not us dancers. We don't have problems. No, I love that. Okay. Good to know. Okay, Jess, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
I was so thrilled to see it. So should I love today? I'm sending you.
This was great. Really fun conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, you take good care. Hi, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you so much for listening. If this message resonates with you, please pass it on to someone who needs to hear this right now. And if you like what you've heard, your feedback will go a very long way. If you just take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review, that would mean the world to me. Till next time, point at yourself to rise to all that you are capable of.